Hey guys, what's up? We're back with some more WarFrame action, and today we're going to have a look at a budget build for Valkyr. So, for those who don't know, that Valkyr is a rage frame. She's literally a rage frame. Her entire backstory is that she's ludicrously angry about getting sort of torn apart by Alad V. So you can get her parts from Alad V, and yeah, she's an angry, angry kitty. Anyway, what do I mean when I say a budget build? Well, some people may call a budget build a build that requires as little platinum and credits as possible. Some people may define a budget build as something that you can get really, really early in the game. I define a budget build as one that requires as little forma as possible, because that means as little time as possible to re-level up weapons and other gear in the game. So this build for my Valkyr is a one forma build. Here it is. Things of note is the 130% efficiency, which is fine because she is a rage tank. She can use Hunter Adrenaline to great effect. It's not like Mag, who can't use Hunter Adrenaline at all, so has to rely on other ways of getting her energy. So yeah, having 130% efficiency is fine. I find that having 100% efficiency though is a bit much. Like, it's really asking for energy, so sticking to 130 is pretty good middle ground, especially when you have like a slot available. You might as well stick Streamline on. 145% rage, that's obviously just coming from the stretch. Notice that I'm not using any corrupted mods in this build either. So there are some budget builds that I use corrupted mods in, so some people may define that as not being a budget build, because to get a corrupted mod takes a lot of time, especially if your RNG is not particularly that good, but for the criteria of my budget builds, it's just the one forma. So with stretch, some people will define having high range in a Valkyr build to be really dangerous because of the way the Hysteria works. If you disengage and you happen to be amongst a reasonable amount of enemies, you'll end up losing quite a bit of health. But for me, I find that that's not that potent. It's not like a fatal flaw or anything, so it's fine. It's fine as far as I can tell. And because it's fine in Hysteria, in my opinion anyway, that makes it really, really good for things like prolonged paralysis, and in particular Ripline. I really like having extra range on Ripline because I like to zip around a lot, being able to fly around and sort of basically be Spider-Man, or in this case Spider-Woman or Spider-Cat. I don't know, but just having that extra range seems to be really, really useful in terms of utility. And also it helps prolong paralysis, which I'll talk about later. It's really hard to say that word fast. Anyway, moving on. Also, the 155% duration is of course very useful for all my combat abilities, being my 2, my 3, and my 4. Some people may make the argument that Ripline is a combat ability because it technically does do damage, but it's kind of like pull on Mag. It's not really that much of a combat ability. It's definitely a utility ability, but I wouldn't call it a combat ability in the slightest. Alright, so there's two augments in this build. The first one is Eternal War. So yes, there are augments in this build. Some people may define having augments in a build to be instantly not a budget build, because in order to get an augment, you need to spend a lot of time getting up to a certain rank in a syndicate in order to buy that augment. Or alternatively, you could find a friend to get that augment for you. I think with Valkyr, I'm in the right syndicates. I don't remember, but anyway, I have all 4 augments actually for Valkyr, and I don't think I had to ask my friends for them. So I have Eternal War, and Eternal War is, as far as I can tell, it should be a staple with every Valkyr build, especially a Valkyr build that is even thinking about using Hysteria, or even thinking about using any melee weapons. Eternal War is just so good. Yeah. And then also the other augment is Prolonged Paralysis. So Prolonged Paralysis, like I said, it works off the range that I give it, so that's really, really good. But more importantly, it's the way it works. Affected enemies are pulled towards Valkyr and the stun duration is decreased by 200%. What they don't mention, and this is very important, what they don't mention is it pulls enemies in, which they do mention, but it also knocks them down. So instead of doing finisher attacks like stealth finisher type attacks, you can do ground finisher type attacks. So obviously if you don't want to do ground finisher type attacks, you want to do, and if you want to do like stealth finisher type attacks, don't equip prolonged paralysis, in which case you'll have 10 mod energy left to throw up something weird like, I don't know, natural talent, power drift, rage again. Like you might be able to, you could use hunter adrenaline and rage. That might be a pretty fun combo to get as much energy out of your health as possible as you basically tank the enemy. But in the meantime, having prolonged paralysis is particularly useful when you have a weapon that can actually make really good use out of that knockdown, which I'll talk about in a bit. You may have seen which weapon I'm talking about already, but yeah, anyway. Moving on, the two arcanes. Arcane Energize is obviously good with everything, and Guardian is just there. You don't have to use Guardian. You could use literally any other arcane. I don't really have much of a recommendation in terms of the second arcane. Feel free to ask your friends, I guess, which arcane they would use for their Valkyr. There might be a melee arcane that is probably much more worth using, but I don't have it. Anyway, alrighty, so which weapon am I talking about to use with prolonged paralysis? Well, it's Prisma Obex, and other contenders for this are Jackatag. I think that's it. There might be another weapon, but mainly it's to have a weapon that has an ability that is similar to this augment. Now this build, as you can see here, is a 3-former build, so this is obviously not a budget build. I think I used one former to put up the Grim Fury polarization in order to give me more mod energy. I think another one maybe for this one, for the D polarity, and then another one for the V polarity. So yeah, this is a build that also uses Conditioned Overload and Prime Pressure Point and Prime Fury, so you know this is a pretty beastie build. It also uses Healing Return, but of course as Valkyr it's not really necessary, but there's no, like, in terms of D polarities, I think I made this build specifically when I was using Mag, but now I'm using Valkyr and I realized that having this weapon is really strong, so I'll just leave it as it is. But if you are going to do a 3-former build and you're not using a Warframe that needs continued healing from melee attacks, i.e. Healing Return, you might change it to something else like V polarity so that you can put your Prime Fury on it, and then you can do something else weird. I don't know, maybe you could do Blood Rush, that could be fun. But anyway, it's all about entropy detonation in this build, because lethal ground attacks cause enemies to explode, dealing 1000 plus 20% enemy maximum health blast damage in a 10 meter radius plus 1 entropy. The 10 meter radius is actually quite short, which is why prolonged paralysis is really good, because it just pulls enemies in. You don't really have to walk up to them, you can just pull them in. It's the same way you're using Hysteria. You don't really have to use something like Hysterical Assault to leap onto enemies, but you can just pull them in with prolonged paralysis. And the added bonus is prolonged paralysis doesn't really require any aiming, whereas Hysterical Assault actually requires aiming. It's kind of why I don't like this augment at all. Also with Swing Line, I don't really feel the need to use this augment because I have quite a decent efficiency in my energy already. So yeah, anyway, let's have a look at how this works out. So we're gonna go up against 8 level 100 bombards, and of course with Hysteria, this will work out exactly as you expect. They will all die. There we go, they're all dead. But you may be thinking, okay, so it would have been faster for me to use regular paralysis instead of prolonged paralysis if I'm going to fight them like that, and that is quite true. But when you knock them all down like this, like so, they're all dead. There we go, they're all dead. And that's like 8 level 100 bombards. If you use this kind of strategy in something like Onslaught, it's really, really effective at just clearing entire rooms, and you know, that's really, really good. One thing that you can also do with that kind of tactic is to equip your Prisma Urbexes instead of having them sort of hanging back, so that you can get the energy. I feel like there's a bug currently in... Yeah, I feel like there's a bug currently in the Simulacra where weapons that have the meter on the bottom right, they don't seem to fill up. I've noticed this with Super Vandal and Gamma Core and Prisma Urbex. So that's obviously not being demonstrated here, but if you're doing this in, say, Onslaught, the moment you do a ground attack, a ground slam finisher that kills something and it wipes out an entire like immediate area, you'll notice that you can pretty much get the proc happening, the entropy proc, so that you get some of your energy back. But yeah, anyway, that's my Valkyr build. Let me know what you guys think about him, and if you guys have a better idea of a Valkyr build, feel free to throw it up in the comments. I'm sure Valkyr is something, is a warframe that some people do like to discuss on a regular basis, so yeah, she's quite fun, and she's also really aesthetically pleasing. Anyway, hope you guys enjoy this. If you did, hit the like button. If you really did, maybe consider subscribing to the channel, and until next time, I will see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye!